We are 5 weeks into Lent and our boot camp for the soul. We've realized our need for change and allowed ourselves to reset and start again. We have considered what it means to hit a dead end, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and how we move past that so that we can allow God to redefine our lives. Today, we will consider one of the most important parts of a boot camp, the need to hydrate. As I thought about water, the importance of water, and our need for water, I thought it would be interesting to look up some statistics about water. And I found these from a variety of websites, which I'd be happy to share with you later if you are interested. But let me share some of these facts with you. Did you know that 85% of the water on the International Space Station is recycled? You may not want to think about that one for too long. Tap water in the U.S. costs about 0.002 cents per gallon. Of course, we pay quite a bit more than that if we are buying it in bottles. And speaking of bottles, bottled water requires 5 to 11 times more water to produce than the bottle actually holds. 1 in 9 people worldwide do not have access to safe and clean drinking water. And if we were to bring that down to a scale of our congregation, a little easier to understand, I'm sorry, choir, but you no longer have the clean water. Just to give you a visual image. Half of the world's hospital beds are filled with people suffering from a water-related illness. And of sub-Saharan healthcare facilities, 42% lack an improved water source within about a third of a mile, and 36% lack soap for hand washing at a healthcare facility. And the final one I want to share with you, nearly 1 out of every 5 deaths under the age of 5 worldwide is due to a water-related disease. Some of these statistics are difficult to comprehend, probably especially for the choir, given that all we have to do is turn on the tap. We do know a little bit about drought here in Alabama. Last summer, we were in a drought. The lake went down and certain areas were given restrictions about when and how they could use their water. I know at our house, we were only allowed to water our plants a couple of nights a week and only after 8 p.m. But even with these restrictions, we had easy access to clean water. We didn't have to worry about if we would have enough to drink or to wash our hands. Our plants may have suffered, but we didn't. In our text, Jesus was thirsty when he arrived at Jacob's well. Jesus lived in that part of the world that is still a water-sensitive area. It was midday, the sun was blazing, and Jesus had been traveling. The only access to water was at the bottom of a deep, deep well, and Jesus had no bucket. So he sat down by the well and he waited. A Samaritan woman came to get water, and Jesus asks her to dip her bucket into the deep well to give him a drink of cool water. To us today, this makes sense, and it seems like a lovely story. He drinks, she gets her water, and everyone is happy. Except this was a Samaritan woman. The Samaritans were despised by the Jews. They were an impure race stemming from conflict centuries before. Jews would have nothing to do with the Samaritans as they were unclean. But Jesus asks the Samaritan for some water. Anyone watching would have been horrified. Not only that, but she was a woman. Talking to her went against all customs. Rabbis did not speak to women in public. Women were ranked higher than Samaritans in Jewish culture of the time, but not by much. They were also at the bottom of the social ladder. They were considered property dictated to by their male family members. But Jesus spoke with her. Jesus cared about her. Jesus asked the Samaritan woman for some water. Jesus' physical needs were met. He was thirsty, and he received some of this cool, clean water to drink. She was there at midday, and we can wonder why, because women came to fetch the water early in the day or in late evening when it wasn't so hot. It was also their social time. But she was there alone at noon. And so scholars speculate that perhaps she was an outcast in her society. Jesus knew that he was not the only one who came to the well thirsty that day. In their conversation, Jesus reveals who he is and that he can provide living water. He knew that she was spiritually thirsty, and she realizes that he is a prophet. She realizes that he speaks the truth. She realizes that he is the Messiah. And when the disciples return, she leaves. The text says that she even leaves her water jar at the well. I imagine that it was too heavy and too cumbersome. Water jars can weigh around 40 pounds when full. It was just too much for her to carry when she had such important news to share. She goes back to her city and she tells everyone about Jesus. And they are interested. They seek Jesus out and they ask him to stay. They want to learn from him. And they spend 2 days together. And the text tells us that many Samaritans from that city believed in him because of the woman's testimony. Jesus broke so many customs and Jewish laws in this story. He talks to a woman and she becomes a believer, but not just a believer. She goes and she spreads the good news about Jesus. She tells her community, a group of Samaritans, a group from whom Jesus is supposed to distance himself, but a group whom he embraces. Thirst is a great equalizer. All people get thirsty and all people need water, both physical water, access to clean and safe water, and spiritual water, the grace and love that we find in Jesus. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, or what you do, you need water as much as the next person. So how do we understand this story in our culture today? Who are the Samaritan women, the people deemed unimportant in our community? Think of a group of people that are ostracized at the moment. How can we go about remembering that they are important to God, that Jesus wants to offer them living water? This story is different from many of the stories in Scripture because not only does the Samaritan woman need something from Jesus, but Jesus needs something from the woman. There is a mutuality of need. To me, this emphasizes the importance of the relationship between the Samaritan woman and Jesus. There is mutuality, there is respect, and there is relationship. In a physical boot camp, you need water to keep going. You need water to hydrate you, to keep you healthy, and to take care of your body. You need the water that the Samaritan woman provided to Jesus. But in our spiritual boot camp this Lent, we need to accept and receive this different type of water. We need the water that Jesus offered the Samaritan woman, the living water. We need the water that comes from a relationship with God. And we can get that water in a variety of ways. How is your thirst going to be quenched? What do you need to do to make that happen? Like any relationship, our closeness to God needs work. So talk to God. If God is your closest friend, then tell God your concerns, your gratitudes, your thoughts, both big and small. And as with a friendship, the more you know about your friend, the closer you become. Another way we can quench our spiritual thirst is through Holy Communion. As we eat the bread and drink from the cup, we are satisfied both physically and spiritually. Find other ways to quench your spiritual thirst this week. Perhaps you could even connect the physical and the spiritual thirsts. And whenever you take a drink of water this week, consider the story. Remember the people described in the statistics and pray for them. And find a way to quench your own spiritual thirst. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.